So, my friend, there is
Hmm.
something that I feel quite challenged by of
Okay.
recent sort of weeks, and I've just been noticing this theme, and I just love to bring it to the table today and to ask your thoughts, if that's okay.
100%. Of course, that's okay. Love it. Far away, Kath. What's going on?
Yes, so I've noticed this pattern of um, receiving a couple of invitations to things
Hmm.
and then feeling the weight of the decision of those things. To
Okay.
the extent that the other day, Greg said something about calling up and asking one of our kids, or giving one of our kids an option of coming to visit us. And I sort of said, no, 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 just, if we extend that to him, then he sits with having to make this decision and then weighing up, do I need to say yes? Have I got space and time for this? And I don't want to like let them down. And I recognize, Greg like gave me this frown, just like you are. Now too. And
Like, that's extreme.
I realized it's because that's how I've been feeling of late.
Mm.
Um, because very well-meaning, loving
Yes.
opportunities have presented themselves.
Hmm.
And yet I think it's probably got a lot, maybe a bit more to do with the space I'm in right now. I'm
Mm.
going, oh, you know what, this is actually like I'm almost having thoughts of I wish you hadn't asked because now I've got to make the decision. I mean, it's very like below the line. Like now I'm the victim here. I've got to decide and say yes or no. You see, even talking this through, I'm going, oh my gosh, okay, that's what's
Oh.
going on around here.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
think the I think what I'm recognizing is there's
Yeah.
are seasons in life where you freer, there's the sense of being more free to say yes to things, or you have a desire to say yes to things. And
Mm.
then there's a season in life where it's changed a bit and you're not so open to saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a season I'm in right now.
Mm. Yeah.
And questioning the, I think I'm wanting wisdom about like, how do I know
Mm.
what to say yes to? Because some
Mm.
of these opportunities, gosh, I've deliberated and like I'm making myself so tired just trying to like,
Just trying to think about it.
should I, shouldn't I, and I'm like, Kath, just make a decision, and then just feeling the weight lift when I've actually decided. Yeah.
Right.
And I have said no to some things and I have said yes to
Yeah.
some things, but I've just found, I don't know,
The
the season I'm
deliberation of it is
in.
the way. You know, it's so interesting. I love how, you know, when we go through seasons, we're often not on our own. That often we're going through something and hey, we start to share a bit of a story and oh, blow me down. Someone else is going through something very similar. We're not usually taken on these journeys on our own. And I say that because was it last week? Yes, I think it was last week. I was having a conversation with my pastoral, like I've got a pastor supervisor for
Mm.
my role as a chaplain. And so and she was asking me the question about my future. What are some things that are on my plate? What am I thinking about for the future? And I just said to her, you know what? I need to not say yes to any more things. I need to do well with what's in my hands because I've just got, lots on my plate. And I find it fascinating that you're going through this season of feeling the weight of whether or, to say yes or whatever for whether it's work or personal relation, things.
Yeah.
And yet God's taking me through this very,
Isn't that
I believe,
interesting?
a very similar and so that happened on one day. I had this conversation with my supervisor on one day, and the very next day, I was asked to take on something and do something new. It was just so, I was like, oh, okay, this is very interesting. And the journey is always fascinating to me that when we start to think along the lines of something, an opportunity comes up to whether we can, stick to what we've said or so another example,
Yeah.
way back
Mm.
for the podcast. I was in a season of saying yes to opportunity. I'd had that conversation with God. I had declared it to my family. I'm saying yes. And then here I go for a walk with you, and you're like, oh, do you want to start a podcast?
Oh, well, I'm glad you were in the yes phase then. Um,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
also love what you share about, bringing God along the journey with you,
Mm,
and the praying about it. So I'd love to know more about that. So when you pray about things, like how does that help you in the practical everyday deciding? I mean, I know
mm,
God, we asked to pray about these things.
mm,
And so on a practical level, what does that look like for you?
mm,
Um, like, how do you know
mm.
to say yes or no?
Often, so I think when we lift something up to God and we pray about something, there is often this a peace,
Mm-hmm.
a knowing. So when I was asked the very next day to do something else, and I'd already told my supervisor, I'm not taking on anything else. I'd already sort of been having conversations with God around, I want to do well with what's on my plate.
Mm.
And then I was asked about this, and I said to the person who's asked me to do something else, I said, you know what? I'd love for you to send me an email with what you're asking. Let's have a bit more of a conversation around that. Let's look at the details. Let's check out the calendar, etc., etc. All the while, I'm sort of saying, God, if this is something that I can or you would like me to do, then show me. And so for me, what happens is there's a peace and a kind of a knowing in my body. It doesn't mean it's easy. So
Mm.
I've decided to say yes in this instance because it fits with who I am. It's not asking me to do anything outside of me being my authentic self, just me showing
Yeah.
up and doing something. And I feel like it's a bit of an opportunity and a challenge for myself, but nothing that's going to be overly weighty. Is it going to require some thought and some time? Absolutely. Am I able to? Absolutely. So I think prayer for me is I get a bit of wisdom of the big
Yeah.
picture,
Yeah.
and I have a peace and a kind of knowing in my spirit or in my body for the answer. And often you don't, sometimes I don't even need to pray as such. I sort of, uh, sometimes people will ask something, and if I'm already being mindful, I'll just know in my spirit that no, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Even if it's a
Yeah.
great opportunity, I might just go, you know what? No, I know that's not the direction. It's kind of a knowing deep
So it's
inside.
interesting. Yeah. And thanks for sharing that because as you share that, it's helped to take me back a couple of years now where I was invited into an opportunity.
Mm,
And I said yes because logically and on paper
yeah.
and with what um, I was thinking should be the next step, it made sense. And yet, almost immediately after I said yes, I just had this strange feeling in my gut. And I just, it was like my gut wasn't agreeing with my head kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, oh, I don't know that this is quite right. But then I sat in the space of, oh, maybe it's just out of my comfort zone, or,
Yeah.
maybe it's, because there are those moments of
Mhm.
you don't have the peace because it's actually pretty scary what you're stepping into, and it's
Yes.
pretty new and it's pretty big. And there was just something on the inside of me. So I probably need to spend a bit more time clarifying that feeling, but it's a familiar feeling. Like
Okay.
I know when I've had that feeling before that something's just not right, but I've said yes anyway. And
Mm.
then I felt obligated that I
There
suppose
you go.
to, yep, to follow through with my word. So yet let my yes be yes. So it's almost like when
Mm.
I had said yes, and then I realized that, oh, maybe this yes wasn't, I didn't feel like I had permission to go back on my yes and say, now that I've thought about it, I've actually changed my mind. I didn't feel
Right.
um, free
Right.
to do that. So I followed through, and it was interesting because a memory came up on Facebook, and it was a memory of the season and myself in this opportunity with alongside these other people. And I remember, so I looked at the picture and myself in the picture, and I could see
Right.
like all over my face, there was this like, don't want to be there,
Mm.
and it's like
Mm.
just almost this forced because
Yeah.
I'd said yes. And so it's had me reflecting, and I think what did come up for me deliberating over these opportunities
Mm.
of late was that word obligation. And I think
Mm,
I'm becoming aware of how often I feel obligated to say yes to things. And then I think, but what for?
mm.
Like that's a weird, well, interesting pattern to notice, let's put it that
It
way.
is interesting. Hmm.
And then asking a different question. Okay, so if there was no obligation here,
Mm,
and your yes could be yes and your no could be no, like easily, and there's no right or wrong or good or bad.
yeah.
And that was helpful. Um, because I do pray about decisions and things. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I pray and I feel that I don't have an answer. And I feel sometimes
Mm,
God saying, either's okay.
yeah.
This is one of
It's
those
up to
where it's for
you.
you, up to you. You choose. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I go, oh man. And then I think, okay, well maybe I've just got a bit of growing up to do, but so the question
Mm,
I've started asking is what is this shining a light to? And it's
right.
shining a light to. So for me, it was like, okay, so the difference between an obligation versus a what
Mm,
does my heart feel? And I think the challenge is that the story in my head goes that if I say no to something that I feel obligated to say yes to, I feel like I'm going to be letting somebody down.
that's what my question was going to be. What happens if you say no when you feel obligated? Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, well, it is that you feel like you've left someone down. And I suppose it's the need for approval or the need to be liked or
Mm,
the need, like what are they going to think? I
yeah.
don't want to be a bad person or what I don't.
Mm,
But it's interesting because of these opportunities that have come up, I have actually said no to some of them.
mm,
And it actually, I've said yes to others, no to some, yes to some.
yeah.
And it wasn't as hard as what I thought it was going to be to say no. It's the recovering people pleaser for sure coming through here.
Mm, yeah.
But
You've shared that plenty of times on the podcast
yes,
about,
yeah,
yeah.
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 And yet it's still so I loved what you shared just now about, you were asked and your response was
Flick
let
me
me
an
think about
email.
it. Yeah, flick me an
Yeah.
email, let me think about it. And
Mm,
I at the same time I remember reaching out to a friend and asking if they were free for coffee or lunch, I can't
mm,
remember. And this person's response was, can I get back to you tomorrow? And I thought, oh, I love that response actually, because
mm.
it means that she's giving herself time to, for whatever reason. And that felt, because I found myself in a place of like not wanting to ask anybody for anything because I thought I don't want them to feel like
Feel the
obligated.
pressure. Mm,
And that's crazy. It is crazy.
mm.
So I think what I'm
Because then the
discovering.
flips, oh, sorry, keep going.
No, 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 go for it. The flip.
Because I was going to say the flip side is if we're not asking people, then they also feel left out, not included, not invited. Do you know, if we're
Yeah,
worried about keeping people happy and if we're feeling
yeah,
obligated, then we're not giving space for people to have that option, to be included, to be invited.
yeah. And I think that's interesting because I think the other thing I've noticed, gosh, and this conversation can go totally on a different tangent, but another pattern I've noticed is that I'm avoiding committing to a, a scheduled appointment of things.
Mm.
So, like as an example, just phoning back to South Africa, phoning my parents. I
Sure.
know with Greg's parents, we phone it's the same time every week, and we've got like a set day and
That's
time.
what you do.
And I can
Hmm.
see the value in that. They ready for it, we ready for it, everyone, But I kind of sometimes it feels like, oh, now there's an
I
obligation to
have
be
to.
home at that time and be, because that's the schedule. And I've always thought that I actually don't ever want my kids to feel like they need to phone me out of obligation. And so I've avoided that in a sense with my parents. Like I'll phone
Mm,
them because I want to speak to them, not because I feel
mm.
obligated that it's now the time in the day and I'm not saying if you're listening to this that if you've got a schedule of things that's because I think we're all different,
We are
and
different.
I know that Greg doesn't feel obligated. He's like, oh yeah, it's this time of day. Like we're talking to my folks tonight, and it's great. And it's. So I
Mm,
think it's for me potentially. this conversation is helping me to understand that it's also what's inside here. It's what's on your heart. And I think potentially in the prayerfulness of things,
Mm,
because I think as we pray, God shines a light on what's happening on the inside as well.
yeah.
And yes, it's a sometimes it's a peace, and if there's a peace,
Mm,
it's yes.
hmm.
Sometimes it's like a nervous excitement,
Mm.
and you're stepping into something that's new and scary, and it's not a peace, but it's still, as you say, it aligns with who you are and your authenticity and your values, and you just
You
know
kind of know
that
it's the
it's
right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I also am recognizing that actually I do know when it's not a right fit.
Mm.
And it's having the courage to, when it's not right, for
To
whatever
say no.
reason, to say
Mm.
no. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or asking for the space to consider it for a bit longer until you can work out the way to say no. I've
yeah.
I've known my whole life. And I think I've shared this on the podcast a long time ago. Someone said to me, Al, you can say no to things. And because I used to say yes because I wanted to help people, I wanted an opportunity. I just, yes, yeah, I can do that. I'll do it. And it's not until I've sort of lived a bit longer, I realized just because I can do something doesn't mean I should do it, that it's mine to do. And so,
Yeah,
and having now, learning the courage to say, oh, that sounds really interesting. I'm honored that you've asked me. Thank you for asking me.
yes,
I'd like to look over all the details before, and take some time to consider that. And to me, years ago, that would be a way too scary thing to do, which is kind of interesting. But
yeah,
whereas now I'm sort of learning, you know what? No, because there's so much. I was saying to somebody the other day, there's so many variables on our plate, husbands, kids,
well,
life.
that's the
We've got so much and to be well balanced, for lack of a better word, right now. We need to prayerfully consider what we are saying yes to, so that we
yeah,
can actually, so that when we do say yes, our yes can be yes, even if it's a bit hard and out of our comfort zone. We have the energy and what it takes to rise up and do it. But that requires having the courage to say no when we need to say no.
yeah. And also, I'm just remembering as I'm listening to you how often I've asked somebody else what I think they think I should do, and somebody else will go, "Oh, of course you should say yes." And
Mm.
then but it's not as straightforward as that, and it's again, it's a crazy thing to think you need to outsource that to other people, and it's really taking ownership and responsibility for your own yeses and
Mm.
nos and thinking it through. And even if other people around you are going, are you crazy, you should absolutely say yes, if you inside are feeling like actually it's a no,
It's not the
you
right
know
time.
and
Yeah.
and not needing to validate the no. It's just no because you
Mm.
just know it's no, but that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I wonder what the next question will be for when we're asked to do something, if it's going to be a yes or a
So if you're listening to this, yeah, be mindful before you
uh,
ask me anything.
yeah.
No, jokes aside, or always happy to consider, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for the conversation because I think you've definitely given me some clarity, and it's
Mm.
just so good even just to know that I'm not on my own. Just to hear you share
Definitely.
that, hey, Kath, I'm in the same season. I mean, that kind of just shifted all the weight off. So thanks, my friend.
And if you're tuning in and going, okay, it's normal to feel the weight of making decisions. It is weighty because it impacts our life. And so I hope that you found encouragement today that yes, sometimes it is weighty. Sometimes we do feel that, and it we need to take time to decide whether it's a yes or a no for ourselves.
Yeah.
And even though you said before, sometimes it's we ask other people. Sometimes there is value in that.
Yes. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
like even our conversation today, unpacking it a little bit, and then as you've shared with me, it's kind of all become a little bit clearer anyway. So you don't need to say, "Oh, Al, should I say yes or no?" But just in the conversation as it's unfolded, you've started to see, "Oh, I'm feeling obligated. Okay, that's interesting."
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
having
And it's also
conversations.
interesting that, next time we get together, I might be saying to you, hey Al, it's so funny in my diary, like I need people to ask me to do stuff, and now I'm like sitting with completely the opposite thing.
No
So
one's
isn't
inviting me anywhere anymore. Nobody wants me to do anything.
oh golly. Anyway, well,
Yeah.
thanks for that, my friend, and
Yeah.
that was helpful. So bless you.
Love it. God bless, and we'll talk again soon.
See you next time. Cheers.